From the station that made country music famous, 650 AM WSM, this is a Coffee, Country, and Cody podcast. Hey, it's Charlie Matos, and in this episode of our Coffee, Country, and Cody podcast, we visit with Patty Loveless. Patty phoned in from her home in Georgia to share memories of her late great friend, Loretta Lynn. Enjoy our Coffee, Country, and Cody podcast with Patty Loveless.
Coffee, Country, and Cody on WSM.
We welcome Patty Loveless this morning, remembering Loretta Lynn on 650 AM WSM. Patty, we didn't have much chance to visit before going on, so it is so good to hear your voice on the other end of the phone, and I'm sorry it is under these circumstances that we reunite. It's been too long since I've seen you.
It's been way too long, and it's been way too long since I've seen Loretta. But I'll tell you, you playing You Ain't Woman Enough. I recall that the reopening of the Ryman, I think it was around 94, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but Loretta and I did You Ain't Woman Enough together. And it was just the most wonderful thing in my life. And I was so proud of that moment. And it almost makes me want to cry remembering that night, because I remember her coming to rehearsal for the show. And it was Kitty Wells. Everybody was there. You know, we were so glad to be there, a part of the reopening of the old Ryman. And I remember Loretta running along the alley from her car going, I don't know. It's just, he wants me there all the time. And I'm telling you, Patty. And I said, well, Loretta, it's okay. And she was talking about Dew. Uh-huh. And I think, Dew had been in bad health. So, a spouse wants their spouse close to them whenever you're feeling bad. And that's the only person you want around, not even your kids. And and Loretta, she was a wonderful wife, a mother, a sister. She was that to all of us.
And for you, Patty, a distant cousin. Give us the family lineage of how you and Loretta are related.
Well, it's kind of hard for me. She had more of this discussion with my brother, Roger, who actually passed away in June. And that's how Loretta, and I got to meet Loretta, was through Roger. Because she was playing at Louisville Gardens. I think it was around 1971. She was doing that benefit for the coal miners of Hyden, Kentucky, that explosion. And I remember my brother managed to get in and to see her around the hotel. He was hanging around the hotel. So that night he took us, he said, we're going to go to the show. I got to meet her. And he actually put her on the phone with my mom so that he had proof. But he had a discussion with her, and Loretta said, there's Bolin and Ramey on both sides of her family. And there's Bolin and Ramey, of course. So for us, my mother was a Bolin, and my father, Ramey. And Patsy had sent me a picture that was Patsy Lynn. Had sent me a picture of, I think it was in the museum, and it was pictures up on a mantle of the old house. And there was a picture, and it's so hard to tell, but it had Ramey, and I think it was their great-grandfather, Ramey. And I never really truly, I probably should have dug into it more, Bill, to tell you the truth. And I was hoping to be able to sit down with Loretta one more time and just really clarify it all of how we all were related. So, yeah, we're distant cousins. It's not like first and second, but it is in the Bolin and Ramey bloodline.
Well, I think with her popularity, then Crystal Gale, and then you come along, people just wanted to make that connection and maybe make it closer than it was in reality, you think?
And there was one time I said to Loretta, in the conversation, I was talking to her, I said, Loretta, because we did a photo session together for a magazine, and we were hanging out. And I said, Loretta, I said, I always try to figure out how we're related. And she said, I said, but you know what? Back from where we come from, I guess we're just all related. She goes, oh, don't say that, honey. Never say that. I know what she was thinking.
Yeah. Well, my mother would say of genealogy when I would talk about family tree and history and legacy and lineage, and she'd say, don't be looking back in there too far. You don't know what you're going to find.
Well, and there's a lot of truth to that, because I've got a couple of friends to tell them they couldn't believe what they found out. I'm like, okay, I don't want to go there.
I think about you and your career because of your father's black lung and subsequent health issues.
Yes.
You moved from mountains
Yes.
of eastern Kentucky, where Loretta's story started in Butcher Holler, to just outside Louisville for him to seek medical treatment. But as a young girl,
Correct.
were you 14 when the Wilburn brothers take note of you and you auditioned for Porter Wagoner? In the early days, did you co-write with Dolly?
Dolly, actually, I didn't really co-write with Dolly.
Mm-hmm.
I was, and Porter sometimes was trying to, but they were so busy. And here I was a young girl, and I was still in school. And sometimes I would go maybe on a weekend if I could break away, or during the summer I would work at Music Mart USA. Actually, it was right across from the old Ryman back then, and it's where the garage is now, the parking garage. And I worked there, and I would work the window, and whenever I was working in the store, I would, and it was, Doyle Wilburn was a silent owner of Music Mart USA.
Okay.
And so I, every Saturday night, I always found out who was performing, and I would walk across to the old Ryman, just walk across the street and go over there and check out Marty Robbins or Merle Haggard or whoever. And, working in a record store like that, and just across the street from a Ryman, it's a lot of history there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And I was always displaying who the main act was in our window for that night, the performer. And so, yes, I was writing, The Sounds of Loneliness was a song that I wrote that ended up on one of my first records, and it ended up on my Mountain Soul record too, as well. But it was one of the songs that Porter was so attracted to. And then another song I wrote called I Did. And then I met the Wilburn brothers in Louisville, Kentucky. They were again playing Louisville Gardens, and it was one of those shows, I think Connie Smith was on the show. I'm trying to remember everybody. It was one of those times when
Wow.
there was like 5 acts at one time on one show, because they were doing like maybe 20 minutes, if that. And my brother and I were called in to replace someone that couldn't make the show. And Danny King was the DJ there in Louisville, Kentucky, that called us to come out and do it. And it was just me on guitar and my brother, Roger, and we went out and did about 3 songs. That's it. And that's how we met the Wilburn brothers, because Doyle drugged Teddy out of the dressing room and said, look, you got to come and hear these kids. and then the next thing I know, they really became interested in me and invited us to Nashville. And I think they were still doing their TV show, and at that point, Loretta, I think, was had just left or just about to leave, mm-hmm. and left that company. So they had interest, but they always had interest in new faces, young people coming up, because Doyle Wilburn always said to me, he says, you know what you've got that I don't have? And none of these other artists have. And I said, no. I said, what is that? And he went, youth, honey, youth. You've got you.
Wow. And that brings me
he
to...
says, and you need to use it while you've got it. So.
That brings me to Carly Pierce, who went into the studio with a mantra, what would Patty Loveless do, not too long ago? And here we are celebrating 97 years this week of WSM Radio and the Grand Ole Opry. It's birthday week.
Yeah.
Loretta passes away, and she comes out on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry and does Dear Miss Loretta. And
oh, my Lord.
You and Carly have become friends recently because of her love for you and your influence, and Loretta's as well on her career.
I've never met Carly, but I feel I know her because we've talked many times on the phone and FaceTime. And, she is just a sweetheart. And I had a friend that really had an interest in her and said, she reminds me of you. And I said, yeah, but she's prettier. She's prettier. I think every woman looks at that, at another woman. So, but you know what? I am older, so I guess that says a lot.
Well, you need to share that piece of advice that Doyle Wilburn gave you to Carly about use it while you got it. Your youth.
Listen, I don't have to. Carly is using it. I'm telling you,
she
is. That girl is working her butt off, and she deserves everything she gets. She really, all the good things I hope comes her way.
Yeah, she's got 5 nominations at the upcoming CMAs. And in closing,
unbelievable.
I know. What did Loretta represent for you on a personal level, but larger, the impact? What did she represent? Her life, her career, for women in country music, Patty? As we close.
Well, in today's world, women have become more and more and more independent, and it's just that, and have more freedom to speak out. And Loretta, though, she was way ahead of her time. When I think about it, because I was doing some of her songs when I was 14. And even at 12 years old, I was singing Don't Come Home Drinking with Loving on Your Mind, or You Ain't Woman Enough. But the thing of it is, she taught, I got education through music, through lyrics. And, sometimes I feel that when you listen to a song, that there you learn from things in life. And Loretta, I think for the most part, she was married at such a young age that when I think about Loretta at that time, at the age of 14, I was just writing what I knew and I knew about, or what I was curious about, and what I wanted to learn about. And I think that was the case with Loretta. Loretta just wrote what she knew about, but what she thought other people knew.
Yeah, and I think about as you say that.
And it was okay to talk about it back then, but no, you're not supposed to do that.
You were 14. Loretta had already been married a year when she was 14. When she was 19, I think she had 3 kids by 19. I was reading this in the bio the other day, and she was a grandmother at 34, and the twins were 2 years old when she became a grandmother. Just such an extraordinary.
Well, I kind of married into being a grandmother. And Emery and I was working in the studio one time, and I was doing this lullaby song for. It was for a special record, children's record, and when I was doing it, and at this point, Emery and I had interest in each other. We were kind of sort of close friends, but not quite. And I was singing it, and he went, Patty? And I said, he goes, sing it like, that you're rocking your baby. And I said, rocking my baby? I said, I'll probably be a grandmother before I'm a mother. And he went, he talks about that, he thinks about it. He says, when you said that, he already had children and grandchildren. By the time we got married. I'm serious. How
about that?
So, it's, I became a grandmother before ever.
Well,
So
Patty,
I look at Loretta, and I think about all those things and the things that she went through, and always wanting to take care of her family and take care of her husband. And, that's the place I'm into. I'm not on the road as much as I used to be. Pretty much I've kind of shut down things, but I've kind of been home and taking care of Emery and in the home place.
well, come see us at the Opry soon. We miss you, and you
I
belong
sure
there.
want to. The COVID thing just,
Understood.
had really shut a lot of things down, and it was really, I had to be careful for him. So I want to come to the Opry. I miss the family so much, but I do listen in.
Patty Loveless on 650 AM WSM, Circle Television all over the world. I love you. I miss you. Thank you for remembering Loretta with us this morning.
Love you too, Bill.
Bye-bye.
Loving on me won't make things right. Well, you leave me at home to keep a teepee clean.
Thanks for listening to our Coffee, Country, and Cody podcast. Our program director at WSM Radio is J. Patrick Tittle. Our digital producer is Haley Hall. Marketing and promotions director is Amanda Cannon. And I'm Charlie Matos. If you like what you've heard, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and leave us a review on iTunes. It really does help new people find the show.